Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
Welcome back to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. I'm Tania and I'm here with Paul. Hey, Paul.
G'day, Tania. How you doing today?
I'm wonderful today. So excited to be back to do another episode.
It's amazing. Look, we've had so much fun with this, and today we're going to be having a look about all the change that's happening at the moment and about leading your business through the changes, all the changes that are happening in your business, in the NDIS as a whole, all the uncertainty that's there. And Tania and I are just going to dive into some things that you can do to help lead your business, because we thought it's really important that you take some time, take a bit of a different look at your business, where things are going, and lead your team really well. So Tania, you've had lots of businesses, different types of businesses, and you've led quite a few different businesses. Do you have any tips for leading an organization through change?
Yeah, look, I think the latest or the last big change that we all had to navigate was COVID, right? When COVID hit, it actually reminds me a lot of the current environment for NDIS. There's this uncertainty. We know things are changing. We don't know how long. We don't know what the impact's going to be. We don't know really. We haven't done this before. We don't have a roadmap really to navigate this amount of uncertainty in our lives right now. And that was really similar to COVID. And so I guess all of the tips that I have come from, leading Provider Plus team through all of those changes that happened.
Yeah.
And for me, there's a few things, but I think the number one thing comes back to really clear communication with your team, communicating often and even maybe over communicating, because I feel like what happens in businesses is if there is this uncertainty and we don't actually know, we don't have facts, people make up things in their brain to fill those gaps. So I think the more you communicate with your team about what you're doing, how you're responding, what your plan is, what this means for them, what this means for you, the more we communicate, the more certainty we have. I'm a true believer that as a leader, it's a Tony Robbins concept, and I'm not going to get it right, but it's that idea of, that when everyone else is worried, the leader in the business is the person who stands up and says, I've got this. Tony Robbins does this whole skit about this, and he rips his shirt and rah, I've got this. And that's kind of the difference between a leader and a follower. And in our businesses, as business owners, we are the leaders, whether we want to be or not. And look, you don't have to be the business owner to be a leader in a business. Anyone can be a leader. But a leader is someone who gives everybody else certainty and really tells them it's okay if outside is uncertain, because right here we know what we're doing and this is our plan and this is how we're going to navigate that. And so communication to me and over communicating is what I would suggest is the number one tip. During COVID, we established a daily huddle with our team. The government did a similar thing. The government came out with daily COVID briefings because they were trying to communicate and over communicate. So I think that in times of uncertainty, communicating, whether it's a daily huddle, whether it's a daily, and if I couldn't make the daily huddle, I would do a quick email to my team. This is what today looks like. And we actually have continued that ever since COVID. I still do a daily huddle with my team just to run through what the day looks like. And so I feel like that's a really great thing to implement if you haven't already, a daily huddle or more frequent communication. If you usually speak to them weekly, then maybe make it twice a week. If you usually speak to them monthly, maybe make it weekly. And especially if you're communicating to a external workforce like support workers who are out there all by themselves filling their those gaps, just think about how do you engage them more. Can you set up a WhatsApp group where you put in a weekly update on, hey guys, these are the changes in the NDIS space. This is what we think they mean. This is how they're impacting our business. And just making sure that people know that you're on it. And I guess with that, the second tip is just be authentic and open and honest and transparent. You don't need to know everything. You don't have a crystal ball. So you can tell them, right, I don't actually know what's going to happen, but this is what we're hoping will happen. And this is the worst case scenario. And we're preparing for both so that you are taking that, leadership role. The next thing, I guess, would be this idea of leading by example and demonstrating resilience, having a positive attitude towards the changes and modeling adaptability. So, when there are changes, don't go into the fetal position on the floor. Like you can do that after hours, right? You can do that at night.
Yeah.
But during the day, when you're on and you're in your work, suit and you're playing the role of a leader, lead by example. Show them that you're not worried about the changes, that you can see the positive. Let's talk about the positives for participants. Let's talk about how this is actually a positive thing for the business and act that way.
Yeah.
And I guess the other part would be when the short term is so unpredictable, let's not even talk about the short term. Let's start focusing on the long term. What are our
Yeah.
goals 10 years from now? Let's forecast the future and let's talk about what that looks like. And let's just hold the vision of the future as opposed to worrying how we're going to get there. We're just going to hold the vision and talk about the vision and articulate it. And there might be storms that come and there will be ups and downs, but that's okay because our long-term vision is what keeps us focused on success and the future and profitability and participant outcomes. And those type of long-term vision setting, I feel, is even more important when the short term feels chaotic or uncertain.
Yeah, absolutely. At your amazing SIL summits, I got to have a bit of a chat with people just around their North Star vision of where they're heading. And you're 100% right. In times like this, the immediate seems uncertain, and maybe even the next few months seem uncertain. But if you hold fast to that direction that you're wanting to head in, where your vision takes you, you will end up there regardless. And you look at that North Star and go, this is where we're heading, and we're not going to deviate from that. We might pivot in certain things with the things that happen, but this is where we're heading as a business. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Now, Paul, many leaders and providers out there are feeling really anxious and overwhelmed. How do you feel that they overcome this to lead? Where do you think like imposter syndrome fits in here? Because I hear a lot of people saying, well, I can't possibly tell people that it's going to be okay when I'm not okay. Or who am I to lead this organization? And how can they overcome that imposter syndrome and really step into that role as a leader when they are feeling anxious and uncertain themselves?
Look, there's a great quote that I heard is that you can't actually fake leadership. If people are following you, you're leading, and you're there by design. And so whether you feel up to it or not, whether you feel like an imposter or not, you are leading people. And so having this idea of, well, I may not have every answer, I may not have it all together, but acknowledging the fact that they are looking for you for something should give you a somewhat proactive approach to being able to say, well, I don't have all the answers, but what answers can I get? And that idea of imposter syndrome is really common among business owners, and everyone thinks it's just, oh, I'm the only one that is not up for this task. But I can tell you right now, as a business coach, having thousands of conversations with business owners, it's a very common thing that comes up. And so being able to acknowledge that feeling, sometimes feeling inadequate or overwhelmed, is just part of being human. But there are things that we can do to just go, you know what, as I said before, we've got that North Star, this is where we're heading. And so we're going to keep going one foot in front of the other. That gives us the ability to then sort of reframe how we're looking at that, and understand that, in a game you level up, right? And so that is a signal of growth, because now you've gone from where you were to where you're heading to. But we don't like hyperspeed jump from one level to the next. There's a transition period, and that's usually when people are feeling that imposter syndrome. They're feeling unsure, right? And so seeing it as a direction that you're heading, and you're going to grow through that direction, is a great way to reframe how you're looking at that.
I love that.
Obviously, we want to. Sorry.
I was saying I love that. That's great.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun, that space. But looking at how we can really leverage the strengths that we have, and I talk to a lot of providers who are really passionate about the NDIS itself and the information, but you can become really proactive, because when there is all the new information coming out, don't be a follower in the information. Grab a hold of it, distill the information that's relevant to your team, and as you said, Tania, have regular communication. But when you put that information together, it's then relevant for your business, right? And that allows people to really see you as the leader and feel led by you, because you're the one handling the information, you're communicating with them. And that helps us to overcome this idea of imposter syndrome, because if you can just dive into your strengths, of whether it might be, understanding the NDIS, or leaning into, let's just focus on participant care and make sure that is at the center of what we do, because that's my main strength. People will follow you in that direction. Obviously they're employed by you, but when people see you actually stepping up and leading in any area, they will follow you down that path as well. One of the other things I like to make sure people do is get what I call a 30,000 foot view of your business, right? Bird's eye view. When you look at your business from the outside, you can see more than just now. When you're there in the midst of the day to day, you can see a little bit in front, a little bit behind, a little bit side to side. But if you get high enough up, like you're in a plane, you can see what's happened in the past. You can see everything that's around you currently now, and you can start to plot out what that future looks like. And so being able to have that wide view is really important, but sometimes that's really hard. And so I guess the next one would really seek support and mentorship. Leaders shouldn't hesitate to seek advice from mentors, peers. And we see the networking that's going on at the moment, which is absolutely brilliant. If you're not, networking with some other businesses, whether it's an organized networking event or you are meeting with other providers and supporting each other, I really encourage you to step out and find a group at very least of people that you connect with, who will actually push you forward and help you to grow in the direction that you want to. Really, lastly, look after yourself, because if you are giving out all the time, give yourself some time to recuperate and to take some time out, because it can be a bit of a thing where business owners will go into this mode of deliver, and not take time to reset themselves and allow themselves to lead themselves as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think the idea of burnout is really, really huge in the sector, between supporting participants 24/7, being overly involved and emotionally invested in your participants, then being emotionally invested in your business and the outcomes, being a business owner and worrying about paying payroll and all of the things that you are responsible for as a business owner. I think we often forget about looking after ourselves. And I feel like sometimes there's even a guilt around, oh, look, I can't
Mm.
take hour to go for a walk today, I'm slammed. Or, oh, I can't take an hour to go to the gym. Or, for me, I remember like sitting there being like, hang on, I've done all of this stuff, but I haven't been to the dentist for like, a long time. I really
Yeah.
need to do those things. And I know that there's so many reasons and so many excuses that we tell ourselves as to why we put ourselves last. But that whole idea of not being able to pour from an empty cup is so true.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
find it, as a mum as well, I've got 4 children to worry about, and there's always something more important than me going to the gym. But I know that when I do go to the gym, I feel so much better for it, that I am happier, I'm a better leader. I feel like I'm looking after myself. My body thanks me for it. And it's just something that has to be done. And I think mental health, like looking after your mental health, knowing for
Mm.
me, going to the gym helps with my mental health dramatically, but so does like walking down to the beach. And if there's not enough time in my week for me to get a beach walk in, something's wrong, because I know that the benefit of doing that beach walk is that I'm going to be a better leader, I'm going to be a better mum, I'm going to be a better boss, I'm going to be happier in myself, and able to be able to fight another day. Um, I know for me, like I don't always work Fridays. I have my 3-year-old on a Friday, and I know that Fridays always clears my head. And having the
Hmm.
break Saturday and Sunday, I always come into work Monday ready and rearing to go. And the times that I do work throughout the weekend because there's something else or there's something urgent that's happened, I'm not half as sharp on Monday if I haven't had that break. And so I
Yeah.
feel like really prioritizing our self-care is so important for business owners, and something that's often forgotten. So
Mm.
it's really glad that you raised that point as well. Um, so I I had a question for you, Paul, around the idea of investing in yourself and mentoring. Tell us tell us a little bit more about that. How can providers start to work with other providers? You mentioned networking groups. How have you seen this work? Because I know that obviously you do coaching, and people can come to you for professional advice, but you also mentioned like peer-to-peer mentoring. How does that work? And is that formal? Is that informal? How have you seen that
Mm.
work as a strategy?
Look, I've seen a few different ways that this has worked. So I'll give you a couple of different ideas, because not everything will work for everyone, but you'll find where you fit in this sort of space. But we've got some providers here in Perth who are regularly attending networking meetings, and so there's a formal part of the meeting, and there's some networking that happens afterwards. But then there are uh, providers that meet up outside of those, because they've made those connections, they've learned what people's values are, they've seen that we have similarities in common. And so now there are even some smaller groups that meet up on a monthly basis to catch up, and let's go grab a coffee, but let's talk about business and what's going on. And it's all this idea of keeping each other accountable and on top of things. It's a bit of an informal arrangement where they just sort of go, we're all dealing with stuff at a similar level. We can actually support each other in this.
Mm.
I've seen other arrangements where people have actually, created their own what was called a networking thing, but it was really just an opportunity for people to get out and meet other business owners, because there wasn't anything in their area. And speaking with a client just recently, moving to another town, and it wasn't like one of the large cities, but there was really no collaboration or communication in the area at all. Uh, whether it had been tried in the past or anything like that, we're not sure. But he just thought, well, I'd like to really meet some providers, so why don't I just put on a morning tea and meet some people? And after a couple of months, there was a group of people who came. They started supporting each other in business. There was collaborations that started happening. There was referrals that started happening, and it really helped support everybody. Just because one new person decided to step out of the boat, be a little bit forward, and say, hey, look, let's get together and just chat about business and NDIS and share information. And they developed a group there. And the last one that I've seen work really well is, for instance, inside of our profitable provider program, we've got team in there who, when we're having we have like some group coaching calls and that sort of thing, and they go, yeah, I'm dealing with that thing as well, or I've sorted that problem out. Let's catch up and have a chat, and I can show you what I did to sort that thing out. And so it's a bit more informal, but actually having peers who have solved the problems that you're currently dealing with is an amazing opportunity for you to save a lot of time and heartache. I remember when you brought up COVID, obviously is a massive thing, but there was massive floods throughout Queensland a couple of years ago. In fact, I think it's almost every year at some point through Queensland. But a couple of years ago, and someone was going, I can't get to, some of our participants, and one of our support workers is there with, and they're actually stuck. What do we do? And it was a fantastic that we had a group of people where they were able to go, oh, we've actually had to deal with that. This is what you can do. This is the information you can get. Here's how you get support and advice. And here's what you do with the emergency services. And it was just brilliant to see people come together, solve problems together. And it's one of the great feedbacks that we've had is that people feel that they can actually bring a problem to a group of people. It will be solved without judgment. And then you're going to have a real outcome. So there's a couple of different options there, but if any of those work for you, just find people that you can connect with, that you can collaborate with, and whether they are a peer, like similar level to you, or mentors, a few steps ahead of you. It's really about being open and honest and being regular, and actually being proactive with these things happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. And that's kind of what we've tried to establish with our Business Accelerator network is really
Mm,
the starting point to build those relationships because, they say in a classroom at university or at TAFE, most of the learning that you learn in those environments, actually you don't learn from the teacher, you learn from your peers, that
yeah,
peer-to-peer
yeah,
engagement. And you lose all of that when you move online for education as an example. And
mm,
that's why we have things like communities and Facebook groups, etc., to do that peer-to-peer.
yeah,
But there's really nothing like having a colleague who has done it before, who's been in your shoes, as you said, that one
yeah,
step ahead, that they can say, hey, look, this is the pitfalls, this is the issues, etc. Especially if you're not at the point where you can afford a professional. So obviously
mm,
I support people through the audit process, you support people through business as coaches, and that's great for people who can afford it. But if they can't afford to go with a professional, then having someone who's been through the audit process before, it's not the same level of service, but it's definitely better than nothing. It's definitely to have
100%.
the experience of someone else who's been in your shoes and has been through it is just that whole concept of standing on the shoulders of giants. It's
Mm,
you start well ahead of where you would if you were doing it from scratch yourself. And there's so many amazing people out there in this sector, but also just business people in general that you can join with and be in touch with who will help you get that leg up to the next spot in your business. So I think that's really great advice as a leader, and really ties together with that concept of looking after yourself, because you might feel uncertain as a leader, you might have imposter syndrome, but by supporting yourself and having that support network, it makes you really start to feel like, hey, I can do this, I have resources,
yeah,
I have skills. I find that many people when they start a business, the biggest barrier is actually, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no one to talk about this with. I don't know anybody else in a business who can help me. And that was certainly my experience as a 21-year-old starting a business. All my friends were out drinking. No one had started a business. I didn't, it was hard
Yeah.
to find people who were a step ahead of me. And I'm so lucky for the mentors, both official and unofficial, that I've had in my life for really
Mm.
providing that extra level of certainty, confirmation, um, connections, introductions, advice, even sometimes advice I don't want, advice that is harsh, or advice that is uncomfortable to receive, but that it's, for me, I find that probably the best way of learning is by bouncing things off other people whose opinions you trust,
Mhm.
and you value, and really helps me get to a new place in my businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I think that what you've done there, for instance, with the business accelerator groups, has put the opportunity for people to, you know, learn fast, get moving, and the idea that I love is avoid the problems other people have had. Like when you put people in a room, someone in that room has solved the problem you already have,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so you've got the opportunity to be in those situations, to be in those rooms, and it's a great point to launch off if you don't currently have a peer group or a network and help you get that ball rolling.
Mm.
um, Tanya, what are some examples of how a provider can get this ball rolling? You know, the small things they can start to do to lead their team and be the captain of the ship that they're on.
Yeah, I feel like probably the easiest starting point is to model calmness and positivity,
Mm.
and really focus on, how do I want to go into this meeting? What person do I want to be going into this staff meeting today? What person do I want to be going into the office today? Do I want to be the person who's worried about payment locks and worried about the future and unsure about things? Or do I want to turn up and actually be the person who knows this is going to succeed, because I'm not going to give up until it succeeds, and
Mm.
I'm here for the long term? What type of leader do I want to be today? And really just model that. And I really don't like the saying fake it till you make it. I don't like it, because I don't think it's fake it till you make it. I think you have those skills in you. It's really harnessing that internal knowledge that you have, that internal strength that you have. And I feel like that's probably the first point that I would start, is step into those shoes, be that person,
Mm.
and or actually consciously choose the
Yeah.
person you're going to be in the situation. And I have to do this to myself sometimes. Like I think when you walk out onto a stage, you choose a different persona, right? You're a different person. You have to be that confident person. Um, for me, my first speaking engagement was, I was a trainer and assessor. I was teaching the Cert 3 in childcare. And the first time I got a job, I was 20. So I was younger than most of the people in the room. And I walked in, I was teaching at an international college in Sydney. And I walked in, and the person said, look, go to the front. There was 65 people in the room.
Hmm.
And I walked to the front, and then the principal of the school said to me, hey, look, by the way, there's a regulator sitting in your classroom today. And as I walked in the room, I walked in, and I'd never trained before. I was doing my teaching qualification, but I hadn't finished. I was working as a childcare worker. And I walked to the front of the room, and the principal got stuck with the regulator halfway, so he didn't come up and introduce me. So I was kind of standing awkwardly, this 20-year-old, looking at these whole room of 65 international students, most of them in their 30s and 40s, some of them in their 50s. And I had to, in that moment, make a decision. And so I clapped my hands as loud as I could and said, good morning, everybody, on the
Hmm.
top of my voice, and just said, I'm going to I'm going to be the person who's done this before. I'm going to be the
Yeah.
person who knows I have these skills. And I
Mm-hmm.
took control of that classroom. I took through my lesson. I pretended that I didn't care about the regulator assessing me. And when I did that at the front of the room, the principal was so taken back, like, oh my God, wow, she's so confident. She's got this. And so he left the room, and the regulator left soon afterwards because he also thought that I had it. And for me, it wasn't faking it till you're making it. It was actually, okay, now is the chance to show these skills that I have that I
Yeah.
haven't used in
100%.
a while, but I have them. I have this confidence. I have this ability. I know what I'm talking about. I've worked with children a long time. I can tell somebody else how to work with children. And so I just made that decision, and I decided that I was going to be the person who knew what I was doing in that moment. And everybody else believed it in the room. And quickly, I believed it also. And I was a trainer and assessor for many years after that. And that was probably the most scariest moment. But for me, it's that whole thing of, how do I want to show up today?
Mm.
Um, and I do this sometimes if I haven't had much sleep because of children, or I'm feeling sick. I always think to myself, okay, who am I going to turn up to in this meeting? And with staff, like I've been in staff meetings where it's been really horrible. We've had to make people redundant, and I'm having to share this news. Or we've had team members pass away, and I've had to have a team meeting about that. And before going into those meetings, you have to really find, how do I want to come across? Who do I
Mm.
want to be? What message do I want my body language to give? Because what your verbal communication is only so much. It really is how you hold yourself, what you say, the word choice, and really think about, who do I want to be? Who am I showing up as? And in times of stress, it's so easy to go into flight or fight, and just to your body to react
Yeah.
and to go. But I think just taking that 5 seconds before you enter a meeting to think about, who do I want to be in this meeting? What am I portraying? I feel like that's probably the first thing that I would suggest.
Mm.
Um, the only other thing that I would say, I know we've talked about leading by example, and I think that goes with that as well. But the last thing I would say is all about celebrating small wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we've talked about vision in the future, we've talked about the challenges of today, but how we can make every day a little bit more positive to kind of counterbalance the negativity. Let's talk about the success of our clients. Let's have a day where once a week, everybody in the office sends a group email about one win with one participant for that week.
Yeah.
Because everyone in our businesses are there to support participants, and their success is our success. So if we can start a group email, or a WhatsApp group, or a Slack communication, or a Teams message, whatever you use, to just talk about every single person in the business put in one win for the week about a participant, just the impact of those, celebrating those small wins together.
Mm.
Also things like staff birthdays, the business's birthday, make a big deal of the business's birthday. And just any opportunity to bring people together to say, hey guys, you're doing an amazing job. We're doing an amazing job. We're meeting our goals and our vision. It doesn't matter what happens out there, because in here, we're good. We're doing amazing
Yeah.
things. I know in business it's just so easy to focus. Like even me, we focus on KPIs. What's the sales number? What's the revenue number? What's our profit levels? But our staff don't care about any of those things. They want to
Mm.
do good work. And so
Yeah.
just reaffirming and re-encouraging that they are doing good work, and calling them out, getting them involved in driving some of those group communications can really make a difference of the morale of staff, and stop worrying about all of the noise out there of the things we can't control. There's this diagram that I've seen many times. It has a few circles, and in the first circle it says things we can control, and in the
Mm.
larger circle it says things we can't control. And I think just always focusing on the things we can control. We can
Yeah.
control who we show up as. We can control what we celebrate. We can control where we put our focus. We can't control what Bill Shorten decides to do, or the next minister. We can't decide what the government's going to do. We can't decide if the NDIA is going to pay us or not. But we can control how we respond. We can control how we
Yeah.
show up. And I think just shifting of that focus onto what we can control is probably the number one takeaway I would like people to have from this conversation.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. Look, and you said it right there. We have the responsibility for leading, but in that, and it's a little bit cheesy, but there's two words. We have the response and the ability of what we respond. And you're 100% right. We can choose how we show up. We can choose how we lead, and we can work on the things that we can control. And when you actually focus on those things that you can control, that circle in the middle starts to get larger, and the things that are outside of your control have less of an effect as well. And we see this all the time with leaders, that when they really dive into what the things that I can control, my mental health, because I'm taking the right time, my responses to things that come up, even into your fitness and all those sort of things, they all increase what you can control and how you can control them. And it's not that you need to be the control freak, but understanding what you can control and what you can't control reduces anxiety, because you're not worrying about things that are outside of your control. And it reduces, it increases your ability to communicate what's important with your team, whether you're, the business owner or a leader inside the business, you've got a team underneath you. It gives you the ability to be able to say, this is where we are, this is where we're going, and it doesn't matter what else happens outside of there. We are going to continue on our path. Things may change and we may pivot in certain areas depending on what's happening. But as a team, we have our outline of what we're doing, which just gives you a very clear framework for your business and for you to be able to communicate with your team and say, this is where we're going, this is what's happening, and you're 100% right. Don't fake it till you make it. Just lead. And you can't fake leadership. If people are following you, you're leading. So step into it. And as you said, I love that analogy of, being up the front of the classroom and just clap your hands, big loud voice, and go, right, well, this is the direction we're going today, guys. Let's all go together.
Beautiful. I love that. I think you summed that up perfectly. So I think that's it for today's episode. Hopefully, this has brought everyone a little bit of tips and tricks around how to continue in this somewhat turbulent NDIS space that we are working in. Next week, we have a really special episode around supported employment pathways with Benyoni from Able Minds. We're going to really jump into understanding what supported employment looks like and hear about Able Minds' innovative approach. So I'm really looking forward to that. For everyone else, we don't often say this, but it really does help us if you subscribe to the channel, if you share it with everybody else, if you like it. It really does help our ratings and help other people find us. So if you're loving the episodes, please subscribe, like, share, do all of those wonderful things. And we really look forward to seeing you next week to talk about supported employment. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.